Hello again everybody, and a warm welcome back to the channel. If you like to fly around the United States of America on the VATSIM network, then you might want to stay tuned, because this video is going to cover CTAF, a new trial from VATSIM US starting on the 1st of March. Those of you who watch regularly, you're very warm welcome back to the channel. If you're new, tuning in for perhaps the first time, welcome to, I guess, what is probably another VATSIM tutorial episode to fit into my VATSIM tutorial playlist. Hit subscribe if you've not done so already, and don't forget to press the like button and share those thoughts down in the comments below. From the 1st of March 2024 and lasting up to 6 months, VATSIM United States Division are going to be trialling real-world common traffic advisory frequencies, known as CTAF. And it's a little bit like Unicom, but slightly different, because it will become airport specific. We're going to dive into the details of that throughout this video, so I do hope you find it useful. It's going to be a trial going live, and if you fly around in the States, you need to know how this works. Ordinarily, outside of the trial, if we're flying in an area without any air traffic control coverage on VATSIM, we use Unicom 1228, a common frequency that we use in order to coordinate our intentions with other pilots around us. What CTAF does is offer a very similar kind of focus and a similar purpose, but specific to each airport. It still means that you have to look out for other aircraft in the area, and it still means that you need to coordinate with those other pilots, and it will be used around the United States during this trial period when there are no controllers online. Now, the next question that you want to ask is, am I flying in a small aircraft or am I flying in a big jet? And what kind of airport am I flying into? If we are heading into JFK, for example, then ideally, you want around 20 nautical miles and about 10,000 feet above ground level at the point where you begin your blind transmission, similar to how you would on Unicom. And if you're flying VFR, perhaps in a little Cessna 152 into a local aerodrome somewhere in the middle of the States, 15 nautical miles and below 5,000 feet is recommended for your first blind transmission inbound. You've got to remember that not all pilots will be on the same frequency, so it will rely on everybody being on the correct CTAF frequency within the ranges for each frequency in order for each person to hear one another on the network. It's designed to be a lot more realistic, using real-world CTAF frequencies, and it moves away from clogging up Unicom and having a Unicom frequency which covers a vast area and numerous different airports, and everybody then talking on top of each other for 5 or 6 different airports in the vicinity perhaps. It's worth noting that if you're not under the control of air traffic control, or you're in a CTAF range for a particular airport, like for example JFK, then you must monitor and appropriately report your position or whatever's going on when necessary on the VATSIM Unicom frequency of 1228. Now, it's worth checking out the links in the description down below for this video, and they'll include links including this one here taking you to the VATSIM AIP. This website will allow you to search for particular airport ICAO codes in order to obtain the correct CTAF frequency. At the minute you can see the most popular airports. We've got LAX listed here. Perfect, that's a US airport. We'll click on that and have a little look. Within here, you'll get a lot of information, location, different frequencies, the transition altitude and level, airport elevation, and the current METARs and TAFs. Those of you who like to use ChartFox, down below you'll notice we've got good old links to ChartFox there to give you some charts as well, and right at the bottom of the page, perhaps some upcoming events. But this is all about CTAF. So, LAX, Los Angeles International airport. We'll just have to assume we're flying in or even flying out without any air traffic control coverage. You'll notice on the right hand side of this screen, highlighting it now, we've got loads of different frequencies selected. Los Angeles International Airport is a massive airport and ordinarily would have 24-hour ATC coverage in real life, but of course we don't have that in VATSIM. So at large airports like this, you will find the CTAF frequency as the primary tower frequency, in this case 120.905, and it's illuminated there, or highlighted rather, with the CTAF logo in that little box, that little icon next to Los Angeles Tower 129.5. So this is the easiest, quickest way for you to be able to find a CTAF frequency, looking at the VATSIM AIP for the airport you're either flying out of in the States on VATSIM without any ATC, or flying into on VATSIM without any ATC. If we punch in JFK and we press the search button, you can see at the moment we've got Kennedy ground online 121.9er. So ordinarily we would connect and they would assume a top-down coverage. So Kennedy ground would be giving us our clearance delivery, they'd be doing that job as well, plus any pushback where appropriate on US airports, because some of them allow you to push back at the pilot's discretion, some of them require pushback permission, and from there taxi instructions to the hold. At the hold we will be told during the trial to monitor CTAF, or monitor the CTAF frequency 119.1, and we can see that that is the frequency here in the AIP, because the primary tower frequency for Kennedy is 119.1. So we've covered big airports in the States. Well, what about smaller ones? If we look at KLNS, which is Lancaster Airport, this has got its own CTAF frequency as well, 120.9er, and you can either find it in the AIP, or even easier, if you have a Navigraph Ultimate subscription, you'll find it on the charts. So here we can see below the words Lancaster, a frequency and a little blue icon that says C, right in the middle of your screens next to the ATIS. So what that is indicating to you, using the US sectional FAA charts, thanks to Navigraph, is the CTAF frequency of 120.9er at Lancaster. If we select Lancaster, we can get all of the information via Navigraph for that airport. And by opening it, we can select the comms tab. And you can see we have approach, departure, Unicom, ASOS, ATIS, ground, and then tower ATC. So tower air traffic control 120.9er, and that matches the frequency on the charts there. Now let's look back at the New York area, because that's where we are at the moment. An incredibly busy airspace. We've got Newark, we've got LaGuardia, we've got JFK, and some other smaller airports around like Teterboro in the vicinity as well. So how do we find in this busy airspace the various CTAF charts? Well, if we zoom in enough, we'll get a whole load of information like CT 118.3. That is the CTAF frequency that you need if you're going to be using the CTAF at Newark. Ordinarily, on Unicom at the moment, without factoring in any trial, we would all be on 1228. So, for example, there are no air traffic controllers at JFK, at Teterboro, at LaGuardia, at Newark, and we've got 30 or 40 different aircraft flying in or out of those various airports around the same time. You can imagine Unicom will get very busy. Well, now Newark traffic will tune into their CTAF frequency of 118.3, And if we zoom out and we head on over towards JFK, traffic into and out of JFK on CTAF, we'll use the CTAF frequency for JFK. And you'll notice on the Navigraph US FAA sectional charts, we've got CT 119.1 and 123.9. So, to verify which one you need, is usually the first one, but if in doubt, have a little look at the AIP, like we mentioned a moment ago. And sure enough, we've got Kennedy Tower CTAF 119.1 selected on that AIP, and that matches the CT 119.1 on the Navigraph US sectional charts. So, two major airports in close vicinity of one another, but neither traffic will hear one another when they're on their own CTAF frequencies. So it's going to cut down on a lot of busyness on the Unicom system 1228 because it won't be needed anymore. If we have a little look at LaGuardia, we can see LaGuardia on the top left of the Navigraph chart screen there, CT 118.7, and if we compare that to the AIP on VATSIM, LaGuardia Tower CTAF 118.7. So hopefully that makes it really easy for you guys or to follow. So just to further consolidate that point, if we now look at New Haven, HVN, that's got a CTAF frequency of 124.8, and that's identified as a CTAF frequency because it's got that little C in the blue circle on the US sectional charts. So that makes it quite easy to identify that that is the CTAF frequency for New Haven. Now, a few minutes ago we spoke about Los Angeles, and that has a special case, and that this part of the website here highlights that. So as with any rule, there's always an exception, and there are some special cases. Non-specified CTAFs relate to airports that are non-towered. So that might be those very small US airstrips, the little private airstrips, or ones that are in very remote locations without any control towers or anything like that in the vicinity. So they don't always have a CTAF designated for them, and therefore in those cases you will use 122.9. If you're flying in and around the Los Angeles area, you have the Los Angeles Special Flight Rules area to consider as well. So the LA SFRA has its own rule set. It's Class Bravo, it's a large airspace with a heavy amount of large jet traffic around it and associated with it. So it can be difficult to efficiently transit the airspace. So there are special procedures for that. So with that in mind, there's a special procedure and a frequency developed in order to transit the airspace without needing the specific Class Bravo airspace clearance or needing to be in control with ATC as you would otherwise be required. So for that, if you're flying around the Los Angeles SFRA, before you get really close to the airport and you start to think about tuning into the airport's CTAF frequency, in the Los Angeles area you want to tune to 128.55. Again, this is where reading all of the terminal area charts and the AIP link down below becomes really useful. And conveniently, the next example involves New York. So currently JFK down below us, Manhattan ahead, and we've got the Hudson River to consider. Now, the Hudson River itself has its own special New York SFRA, and if you're flying on VATSIM, perhaps doing some helicopter ops around the Hudson River, or you're taking a Cessna 152 down low and slow just to go and explore, you won't necessarily need to notify anyone of your position using one of the CTAF frequencies for Newark or LaGuardia or JFK, because if you're under 1,300 feet MSL, the New York SFRA has its own designated frequency for you to monitor and announce your position on when you're flying perhaps low and slow below 1300 MSL over the Hudson and the East Rivers. And that is detailed here. The frequency 123.05, and the position reports must be made at specific reporting points as you progress along the river. And for that, you need to have a little look at the New York SFRA chart for more information, and an example of it is included here in the FAQs. You can see within this New York SFRA, we've got a particular direction of flow for traffic, and providing we are below 1300 MSL and we're on 123.05, we've got the Alpine Tower mandatory reporting point at the top of the river there. We've got an additional one at Spuyten Duyvil, whatever it is, and then below that GWB as a mandatory reporting point, and that's just north of the Yankee Stadium. So it's some other things for you to consider there. The next scenario, the final additional special case, covers Alaska around Anchorage, and there's a specific CTAF frequency designated based upon the area of the valley you're flying in. So, for example, as they've provided here, the Palmer Municipal Airport and surrounding areas utilise a CTAF of 123.6, but the area of Nick Arm utilises 1228. But what about flying into or out of Anchorage? Well, that of course has its own CTAF frequency, and you might be using 118.3 for that as the primary tower frequency if there is no ATC online. You can see on the Navigraph charts on the left of your screen the FAA US sectional charts. You've also got Lake Hood, which has a CTAF frequency of 1268 for those of you operating into and out of there. Merrill Field, CTAF 126.0. Bryant has got 125.0, and Flying Crown 1229, Sky Harbor 1229, so on and so forth. So this is where Navigraph Ultimate and their US sectional charts are going to really come into their own, because it's going to be expected on us to try and learn all of this and use it as accurately and as realistically as possible for this trial to be a success. As I say, this is a trial from the 1st of March 2024 running for up to around 6 months for VATSIM USA. Only the United States of America are doing this kind of thing, but I hope you found this video very useful and informative and helpful. Gives you some confidence perhaps in using CTAF when this goes live from the 1st of March. Hit like and subscribe before you head off, share your thoughts, and importantly, as always, any tips and tricks down in the comments section below, and I'll hopefully see you flying around the States on a CTAF frequency in the very near future. But in the meantime, as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you soon. Take care.